We are lucky to be able to turn now to CBS News national security correspondent David Martin. You were here, David, listening with me to the president describe in longer than 45 minutes in graphic detail this raid. He said he was watching it from the Situation Room happen. What stood out to you?
Well, first place, we should say one of the headlines is no U.S. casualties, except the dog, who he described went into the tunnel after Baghdadi and was injured by the blast when Baghdadi set off his suicide vest. And then the question was, well, if somebody's going to blow themselves up, how do you identify the remains? He said that they had DNA samples with them and were able to make a match within 15 minutes of Baghdadi blowing himself up. And then they collected all the body parts and brought them out with them, along with some unspecified number of prisoners who had surrendered. And he gave some idea of the scope of this operation. He said all told it took about 4.5 hours, an hour and 10 minutes in, 2 hours on the ground, an hour and 10 minutes out.
We don't know where it was launched from.
We don't. We're going to have to do some backtracking to see where you could get from in an hour and 10 minutes. But this was a large force, 8 helicopters. To just put it in perspective, the force that went into bin Laden's compound, 2 helicopters, 25 Navy SEALs. They had some others in reserve. But this sounds like it was a bigger operation, and one which had been in the works for a number of weeks. He said they had somehow found out his travel schedule, but that one of Baghdadi's security procedures is to change his mind about where he's going next at the last minute. But he went to this one place, and the president said they were able to confirm that he was there, gave the launch, and he said it took off shortly after 5 p.m. yesterday evening.
And the president was narrating it in such detail, it was almost movie-like in his description. But as he described Baghdadi, he talked about the others in the room, including many new members of his national security team. He also did acknowledge Gina Haspel, the CIA director, was key to so much of this. You've learned it was Delta Force commandos who carried this out.
That's what I've been told. Delta
the president
Force
didn't reveal that detail in his remarks.
The Army equivalent of the Navy SEALs. And I would, just from listening to that description, I haven't had anybody tell me this, I would imagine there was a small group of Delta Force that would go into the compound. The compound would be surrounded by a larger group of probably Army Rangers providing security to keep anybody from coming to the compound.
David Martin, you have some busy reporting ahead of you. Thank you very much for joining us.